At the end of your life, you may look back and realize that every battle you fought was against an illusion. The rivals you defeated, the approval you pursued, and the power you struggled to possess may suddenly appear meaningless, like monuments built upon shifting sand. What you believed was an enemy may have been nothing more than your own fear wearing another face. What you call ambition may have been an ancient instinct, guiding you toward a destination you never consciously chose. And as the noise of conflict finally fades, one question remains. Did you live according to your own will, or did you spend your existence defending a kingdom that was empty from the beginning? I am James, and this is Shadow Philosophy. Today we turn our gaze towards Sun Tzu, the ancient strategist, whose insights into conflict, power, deception, and human behavior remain almost impossible to escape. His teachings are often reduced to lessons about warfare, but their deeper significance reaches far beyond armies and battlefields. Sun Tzu understood that conflict begins long before weapons are drawn. It begins with perception, fear, pride, desire, and the stories people tell themselves about what they must protect or conquer. Many philosophers have observed that his principles apply not only to generals and rulers, but also to the fundamental nature of the human spirit. The battlefield now appears in offices, relationships, politics, social hierarchies, digital spaces, and even within private chambers of the mind. The uniforms have changed, but the instincts remain. We still seek advantage, form alliances, conceal weakness, manipulate appearances, and invent enemies to give direction to our uncertainty. Today we explore whether this darker reality of human nature is something we can ever truly escape, or whether civilization has merely taught us to disguise it more elegantly. Join me as we uncover the recurring patterns hidden within the systems that define your modern life, and confront the unsettling possibility that the greatest battle is not against the world, but against the forces within you that the world has learned to control. Throughout history, philosophers have often treated conflict not as a temporary disruption, but as a recurring condition of human life. Sun Tzu understood this reality with unusual precision. His teaching that all warfare is based on deception reveals a world in which perception must be controlled, intentions concealed, and rivals kept in the dark. On the battlefield, this principle can preserve lives and secure victory. In modern professional life, however, the same logic can quietly become destructive. You begin to hide your ambitions, guard your knowledge, and study your colleagues for signs of weakness. A meeting becomes a contest for influence. Promotion becomes a territory to be captured. A co-worker's success feels like a reduction of your own value. The workplace encourages this anxiety by rewarding comparison, scarcity, and constant competition, until you begin to believe that advancement is only possible through another person's defeat. Genuine connection becomes difficult because every relationship is evaluated for its strategic usefulness. Information becomes ammunition, trust becomes a liability, and cooperation becomes a temporary alliance rather than a human bond. You construct elaborate defenses around your professional identity, believing they will make you secure, yet each new barrier makes your position feel more fragile. Soon, you are maintaining an image, protecting a title, and anticipating attacks that may never come. You become the commander of a fortress no one intended to invade. Sun Tzu taught that the greatest victory is achieved without fighting, but you have created a life in which the fighting never ends. By interpreting every interaction as a struggle for advantage, you turn ordinary uncertainty into permanent warfare. The tragedy is not simply that you lose peace, it is that you begin to reproduce the very hostility you once believed you were defending yourself against. Social media is a battlefield on which you occupy every role at once. You are the soldier defending an identity, the commander calculating your next move, and the civilian absorbing the damage. You construct a version of yourself that must be constantly maintained, then experience every silence, criticism, and comparison as a threat to its survival. Sun Tzu taught that victory depends on knowing the enemy and knowing yourself, yet the digital world has reversed this principle. The platform often knows you more deeply than you know yourself. It studies what captures your attention, what provokes your anger, what awakens your envy, and what makes you return after you intended to leave. Your emotional patterns become strategic intelligence. Your insecurities become entry points. What appears to be a social community is also a system designed to convert human vulnerability into engagement. Every notification becomes a signal of status. Every unanswered post feels like evidence of decline. You measure your value through numbers and compare your private reality with the carefully edited performances of strangers. Validation arrives briefly, then disappears quickly, leaving behind a deeper hunger than before. You believe you are expressing your identity, but rewards, predictions, and invisible calculations are shaping your behavior. Sun Tzu advised commanders to control the battlefield conditions before the battle began. In the digital age, those conditions have already been chosen for you. The platform decides what you see, when you react, and which fears remain active in your mind. You are not simply using the technology. Your attention is the territory being conquered, and your psychology is the resource being extracted. The more desperately you attempt to become visible to others, the less clearly you can see yourself. Eventually, the identity you created to gain recognition becomes a prison, and you disappear into the digital shadow of the person you were trying to prove you had become. Consider how deeply emotional validation governs your life. You search for it in praise from your employer, affection from your relationships, approval from strangers, and the numbers attached to your digital presence. Each reward offers temporary relief, but none provides lasting security. The more validation you receive, the more necessary it becomes, until your sense of worth depends on a supply that can be withdrawn at any moment. Sun Tzu taught that a skilled strategist studies an opponent's vulnerabilities and applies pressure where resistance is weakest. Modern systems operate through a similar principle. They identify your fear of rejection, your hunger for recognition, and your anxiety about falling behind, then transform those weaknesses into instruments of control. You are encouraged to believe that your value is measured by productivity, visibility, status, and social influence. The system benefits when you remain dissatisfied because a person who feels complete is difficult to manipulate. You may be searching for love, belonging, and meaning, but you are repeatedly offered manufactured substitutes such as promotions, purchases, applause, and digital attention. You attempt to fill an inner absence with rewards that were never designed to satisfy the soul. This is why success can leave you feeling strangely empty. You are not broken. You are responding exactly as expected within a structure that profits from your insecurity. You have been conditioned to pursue the very things that deepen your dependence. The paradox is that you may become most vulnerable now that you appear most accomplished, because the identity you have built now requires constant defense. You believe you are freely choosing your ambitions, yet many of those ambitions were shaped by forces that understood your desires before you understood them yourself. You continue searching for the key to fulfillment, unaware that the room you were taught to search for has been empty from the beginning. History has repeatedly revealed this pattern, yet most people fail to recognize it because they remain hypnotized by the system's immediate rewards. Approval, status, belonging, and recognition distract you from the deeper reality of your dependence. The same structure appears in dating, professional life, social hierarchies, and every environment where acceptance is offered in exchange for conformity. You search for meaning inside systems that were never designed to provide it, and you trade your independence for the temporary security of being included. Sun Tzu taught that a wise strategist does not enter every battle presented to him. He chooses the terrain, refuses unfavorable conditions, and denies the enemy the power to dictate the terms of conflict. Strategic detachment applies this principle to modern life. It does not require you to abandon the world or sever genuine relationships. It requires you to stop allowing external systems to determine the conditions of your identity. You learn to observe the game without surrendering yourself as one of its pieces. You place integrity above applause, judgment above impulse, and inner conviction above the shifting opinion of the crowd. This demands uncommon courage because the system will often punish those it cannot easily classify or control. You must be willing to stand alone, reject false rewards, and refuse participation in structures that demand your obedience at the cost of your character. When you do this, manipulation loses much of its power. You are no longer easily provoked by rejection or seduced by approval. You become more difficult to control because you are no longer fighting on terrain chosen by others. The paradox is that detachment does not make you less capable of connection. It makes a genuine connection possible. You stop using people as mirrors for your worth and begin meeting them as equals. You are no longer imprisoned by the need to belong at any cost. You become free to explore the full extent of your own potential. The pattern always returns. Every civilization eventually reaches a point when the structures that once created order begin collapsing beneath the contradictions they can no longer conceal. You are living through such a moment now. The institutions, identities, and systems you once trusted to explain your place in the world are becoming fragmented, unstable, and increasingly difficult to believe. Yet the real conflict is not with your neighbour, your co-worker, or the rival placed in front of you. The deeper struggle is against the invisible forces that have taught you what to desire, what to fear, and what to call success. Sun Tzu taught that knowing the enemy is not enough. You must also know yourself, because without self-knowledge, every victory remains uncertain and every defeat becomes possible. In modern life, this means examining the beliefs you inherited before they hardened into identity. It means recognizing which ambitions are yours and which were imposed by expectations, comparisons, and fear. This is the most difficult form of warfare because the battlefield exists within your own mind. It demands painful honesty, disciplined reflection, and the willingness to dismantle the parts of yourself built for survival rather than for truth. You are not escaping the world. You are constructing an inner sanctuary within it, a life governed by principles you have consciously chosen rather than rules you were trained to obey. You stop asking the system to validate your decisions. You stop waiting for permission to exist as you are. Slowly, you become capable of shaping your own direction. The paradox is that the more fully you calm your mind, the more clearly you see how little of it was originally under your control. But this realization is not a defeat, it is the beginning of freedom. You are no longer moving like a puppet through a life designed by others. You are learning to breathe without command, to stand without approval, and to return to the self that was buried beneath years of conditioning. You are no longer a ghost within your own existence. You have finally come home to yourself. The strategies of Sun Tzu reveal the mechanical nature of human conflict, but they do not define the limits of human potential. You have been trained to fight for position in a world that profits from your struggle, competing for status, approval, and control without ever questioning who designed the battlefield. But today, you have learned that the ultimate victory is not always found in defeating an enemy. Sometimes it is found in refusing to become what the system demands, in stepping away from meaningless conflict, and in reclaiming your attention, your discipline, and your inner authority. The person who cannot be provoked cannot be controlled. The person who no longer seeks permission cannot be easily manipulated. And the person who understands their own nature becomes far more powerful than the one who merely understands the nature of war. I am James, and this is Shadow Philosophy. You are the master of your own nature until you hand the keys away. If this message changed the way you see power, like this video and subscribe to Shadow Philosophy. The next lesson may reveal the hidden force shaping your decisions without you ever realizing it.